Very good evening and welcome. You're watching the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. The turbulence in Go Fast has hit passengers hard. There have been several extensions in their dates of cancellation, and the latest is till 23rd of May. But it has also proved to be a boon and an opportunity for rivals. Airlines like Air India and IndiGo have started new flights to fill the vacuum left after cancellation of flights at the peak of summer travel season. But as frequency to popular routes increase, despite that, airfares are going up as well. So a couple of questions we're going to look at on the show today. Where does this leave Fliers? What are the options for Fliers? Is there truly a large opportunity for other airlines to fill in? And can they fill in the gap left by Go First so far? And of course, are the chances of Go First flying again looking brighter or bleaker at this point? To speak on some of these issues, I'm joined now by Jitendra Bhargava, former ED of Air India. Dhiraj Mathur, Aviation Expert, is with me on the show. Captain Amit Singh, founder of Safety Matters, is also speaking with us today, and I'm also joined by Paramprit Bakshi of CAPA. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us. Mr. Bakshi, let me begin with your take on the current sort of point that we're raising, that Go's loss seems to be a gain for other airlines. They have increased flights in frequencies where Go had some kind of a stable and a good market share. But is that going to be nearly enough for the kind of footfalls we're seeing right now?
Well, thanks, Tamanna. Thanks for having me, and good evening to everyone. There are two things. One is, obviously, this is the start of the busy season, and obviously there will be a lot of traffic which is expected to carry on from where it left off in a sense over the past few months. And Go not flying creates some challenges for customers for sure. It leads to last minute hassles for those who have booked on those flights, but unfortunately, it is what it is in terms of the situation. The best option is for other players to try and ensure that there's least amount of disruption that happens, especially from a passenger's point of view, so that those services are available. That should be the first priority for both the ministry as well as the players. That the connectivity issues are not created, and passengers have at least some options, albeit a bit expensive, but they must have some options if they want to move from point A to point B. And we believe that the incumbent players will fill in that space.
Look at the ticket prices going up, and we're showing you those graphics on screen right now. In some cases, average fares are double. Now, of course, the fact that this is rush season has added to the pain. Jitendra Bhargava, I want to sort of get your take of whether this is going to be lucrative for other airlines, whether there is that much of market share to capture, and do they need to do more?
Well, DGCA does need to do much more. You see, here what we are witnessing is that Go First is announcing that our flights are suspended up to a certain date and that they're likely to resume services. I think DGCA should take the initiative and say, look, when you are ready, let us know and we will give you the date for which you can resume. And in the meantime, the available slots are given to the other players who can deploy capacity, because it is my view that the customer must come first. DGCA must take the initiative to prevent fare rise. Fares have always been higher, have been higher for the last 6, 7, 8 months. And it has been my consistent stand that it is largely on account of under-deployment of capacity by all airlines. Leave the first example aside for a moment. Now let's take pure statistics here. In January 2020, domestic sector had a total carriage per day of 410,000 people, and we were operating 3,100 flights. Today, there are 450,000 passengers flying, but the number of flights are less than 3,000. In fact, less than 2,900 flights after Go First's suspension of services. Now, what does it indicate? That the under-deployment of capacity has led to higher load factors. And as we know in the aviation industry, higher the load factor, the last few seats get sold at a higher price. So the airlines have ensured that all of them are going to be getting 90% plus load factor, and that is what they've achieved in the last 3 months. IndiGo will be coming up with results very shortly, maybe later this week, 18th. And if they made a profit of 15 crores per day in the quarter October-December, one can imagine what kind of profit will they make in the January-March 23 quarter. Now, what does it indicate? That the fares are high, the market is growing, the government is failing to persuade airlines to put more capacity. Because my simple question to Ministry of Civil Aviation and DGCA is, why is it that there are fewer flights being operated today when our market has been growing? We have not only recovered the pre-COVID level, but we are at least 10%.
But Mr. Bhargava, how is that on the DGCA? Are they stopping private airlines from starting more flights?
Good, Tamanna, good question. The fact is, who is a regulator here? If airlines have to downplay or not deploy the required capacity in the market, create artificial scarcity, get people scrambling for seats and pay higher fares, who is supposed to intervene at this stage? And if you all know, let's put it this way. When the evacuation was being done from Sudan, did IndiGo not make a public statement that they would like to operate evacuation flights? What does it indicate? That they have spare capacity available with them. So why are they not deploying them? I can understand, yes, all airlines go to the DGCA and get their summer and winter schedule approved. But question is, if you go back into history and look at the statistics and say, why is it that IndiGo is operating? Of course, IndiGo is operating 1,600 flights a day at the peak level. But question comes in, collectively all airlines put together are today operating less than 2,900 flights a day.
So why is that? Is that, and Mr. Bhargava said something very interesting. He said it's creating an artificial scarcity where people are scrambling, and people are surely scrambling. Go first, stopping operations has not helped the cause. And has the DGCA, has the Civil Aviation Ministry done enough to ease the pain? Captain Amit Singh, I want you to weigh in. What really can these authorities do within their power? You can't hold, for example, you can't hold a gun to an airline's head and say, now deploy more flights in these certain routes. These are private businesses. These are private enterprise at the end of the day.
This is a free market. Open sky policy came in the 1990s. So it is for the airlines and their competitor to decide or weigh in how the market will fare and which way to go. The job of the regulator or the DGCA is not to regulate the airlines, but ensure safety and monitor fares. So that's why the schedules are approved by DGCA. And what people don't know is that the tariffs are approved by DGCA. So every airline is supposed to display tariffs either on the newspaper, prominent newspapers, or on their websites. So if you open up a website, any website, there will be a link for a tariff sheet. So that is in the minutest font. It will have about 13, or some airlines have about 23. IndiGo has 23 fare buckets, which means the fares can go from a minimum of 3,000, 4,000 till up to, if you look at Port Blair, 40,000. So those fares are approved by the regulator and they have to operate within them. Now, job of the regulator is, if they are charging more than that bucket fare, which means if they go up to 50,000, then they can step in and take action. But so long they're operating within the range, it is not the job of the regulator. The policy maker has to take some decision regarding this. So policies have to be made so as to ensure that public is not inconvenienced, or rather public is educated. Here, the whole problem is of communication. People are panicking, but there is nothing coming from either the ministry or DGCA. No official statement of what is going to be the future of Go Air in short term or in the long term. So nobody wants to comment or commit since the matter is with the NCLT. But there has to be some alternate arrangement because everybody's going to get inconvenienced. We have to make sure that we have infrastructure which suits the low-cost airlines. That is how they will grow, or they would like to put out additional or deploy additional aircrafts on these sectors. So we have typically sectors like Srinagar, Leh, Port Blair. These are the three which are in the highest bracket. and Go Air was operating maximum number of flights on these sectors. So if they have withdrawn, so obviously somebody has to fill in, and but it is a job of the regulator to ensure proactively that they do not overcharge. Not after a month or 2 months they realize that yes, they have done so. So the active role of the DGCA is only for the fare monitoring, and policy making is with the ministry. So that is where
no, but
they
when
have
we're
to come in.
talking about fare monitoring, or even if you're talking about what is fair to the passengers, the fact is that there is no clarity yet on refunds, and especially after the NCLT process has begun, it's all up in the air. I'm just going to get a quick comment from Dhiraj Mathur before I open up the debate. Mr. Mathur, it's been now several days. It's not new now, and it's not uncommon knowledge that Go First is in trouble. It's been several days. Do you think that the pace of refunds, and in many cases the lack of refunds, is now something that the regulator should also step in on?
Yeah. Well, I will answer this question, but I just want to comment on some of the things that have been said by my other friends on the panel. As far as this, the pace of refunds is concerned, the issue is, where's the money going to come from? I don't know how much, what their cash reserves are, position is, but I can't imagine it's very healthy. And they're not getting any revenue. So where is that money going to come from? So now this is where the committee of creditors is going to have to meet and decide on a way forward. So I don't see any early resolution of this issue of refunds. It's the simple question is, where's the money? So now, as far as the other thing is concerned, about the government doing or the DGCA not doing, etc. Look, fundamentally, the issue today about the airfares is, it's not a question of anyone creating an artificial scarcity. I don't think any airlines in its right mind would, if it can, would, unless it has no other option, ground its aircraft. I mean, look, Go Air ground its aircraft because of engine trouble. And it folded up because grounding an aircraft is really bad economics because you're paying all your fixed costs associated with it and without getting any revenue. So I don't think this is an artificial scarcity that's being created. The fundamental problem is there's a huge mismatch in terms of demand and supply, in terms of number of aircraft, in terms of, as somebody just pointed out, availability of low-cost infrastructure. Now, our market has been growing, and it's still growing. It's not a matured market. But on the other side, the supply side augmentation is also taking place. We need to understand things that are happening. They're all long-term plays. The number of airports, the government is increasing them from 70 odd, 74, they've gone up to 148. The capacity of the 6 metros is being increased. Various initiatives have been taken. Wet lease norms have been liberalized. MRO, GST on MRO has come down. VAT in many states has been reduced. So there's a lot of things that are happening to augment supply. Right. And then, of course, the biggest thing is aircraft. So all the major airlines have placed orders for additional aircraft. Now, all of these things will take time.
That's the thing. It will take time. Right now, we're in the middle
and in the meantime, and in the meantime, if somebody is willing to pay 40,000 Delhi Bombay, and the airlines is offering a seat, and I'm willing to pay it, why wouldn't the airlines
I don't know if it's willing to pay. I don't know if that's fair. Sometimes people have to travel because they have emergencies. They have, either health, family, or work emergencies.
Right.
They don't have choices. You might have a job interview you have to go for. I mean, the fact is that it's in a sense an essential service.
It is absolutely an essential service. But the fact of the matter is that, look, this is it is a free market. The government has also said that having removed the floor and caps that it had imposed during COVID, it does not want to interfere in pricing issues. This is a market-driven thing. It's a free economy. Now, look, Go Air has gone bust. Nobody's standing up and saying that, look, the government should step in and give them a dole. Now, if you look at some of the US and European airlines during COVID.
They did already. Go First has already benefited from the GLS program. Okay, Mr. Bhargava wants to come in. Yeah, but
Tamanna,
they're not paying it back anytime soon, is it? They're not even paying the passengers who book tickets. I wonder where they fall in, the great bankruptcy code waterfall. Where will the passengers go and when will those drops trickle on them? Anyway, Mr. Bhargava.
They're not in the waterfall.
They're not, okay. They're standing outside the waterfall. That's terrible for people who have paid money for tickets. Yes, Mr. Bhargava wants to come in.
Tamanna, let me reiterate what I had said earlier. Even my co-panelists have not got the basic issue that I was raising. Simple question that I'm putting across. Number one, let me clarify first. I am not in favor of DGCA meddling with the fare structure of the airlines. Airlines should be left free. But what I'm opposed to is when the capacity deployment is less than what it had been earlier. Now, one can always say, well, it is only incidental. But I say no, it's a deliberate ploy to ensure higher load factors. And higher load factors automatically translate into higher fares. And higher fares translate into higher profits, which DGCA will announce on the 18th. Now, where is the proof being needed by anyone that yes, the airlines have been operating 3,100 flights in January 2020 and less than 2,900 flights now. One can say Go First isn't there, but Akasa airline has been added, which wasn't there in January 2020. Now, this is where the regulator must come and say, give me reasons why you are not putting in the entire capacity. Is it that your aim is profitability and you are not looking at from the passenger's perspective? This is the simple point that I'm making, that there is a need for regulator to step in and say, look, this is the kind of market we have. This is the growth we are achieving. This is the capacity deployment we have. If you have the capacity available with you, there is no reason why you should keep the aircraft in ground and not deploy it. Only because fewer aircraft in the air means higher load factors, less operational cost, and therefore greater profitability. No, I'm not.
Is in your view, Mr. Bhargava, still a pandemic hangover? Is this?
Oh, it's all over. Please, with 10% more passengers flying at the moment.
There is no hangover.
How long are we going to drag the pandemic hangover?
Okay.
And you see, if you look up just the analyze IndiGo's thing, first quarter of 22, they made loss. Second quarter, they made loss. Third quarter, profit of 15 crores a day. And fourth quarter results are going to come on the 18th. Now, IndiGo has been the most profitable airline. Agreed, other airlines are not profitable, but their losses will significantly come down because of the market operational, the way we are growing at the moment. 90% is the average load factor that all airlines are achieving. Now, we all know it that the moment you get into 85, 90, 95%, there are passengers chasing seats rather than seats chasing passengers, and therefore the fares are high. And to say that, look, because passengers are willing to pay, therefore it is okay, it's not, one can't accept it for the simple reason there are occasions when people have no other alternative but to pay just to fly because there is an emergency of flying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, there was when Go First started cancelling flights, there were people stranded mid-holiday with no way to come back. Now they would have to pay whatever they had to come back and leave their holidays. So in that case, it would not be fair to say that look, they were willing to pay. I mean, it can't be akin to price gouging. Mr. Bakshi, where do you see the solution over here? Do you think it will settle as more and more flights are added? Where are those flights going to come from? Because it doesn't seem like Go First will take to the skies anytime soon.
Right. So there are 2-3 things, Tamanna. Basically, one is there's some genuine supply chain issues which airlines are facing, not only in India but globally, and we need to be cognizant of that fact that there are issues which hopefully will start getting resolved during the next few quarters within this calendar year. So that's a genuine problem, and that's why you have a lot of aircraft on ground within the industry. The other thing is where we believe the regulator or the ministry might have to play a part is to ensure that while the airlines profit, they do not profiteer. As long as that is taken care of, it's a free market dynamic. We are always proponents of market dynamics and less of interference from the government. But the government and the regulator must ensure that there's no profiteering by the airlines given such circumstances which emanate. There are no short or easy answers for the present situation. It's just a matter of demand and supply, and while it's very, very unfortunate to see such scenarios play out, there has to be a mechanism, and hopefully in the future, where the regulators can create a framework as if in case there is a similar situation which occurs in the future, how is it that the industry will respond, and how is it that the regulator and the ministry would respond to? I think that will become more important. Let's not get this this debacle go waste. Let's learn from it and ensure that if something like this were to happen in future, what is it that the industry and the regulators can do so that it causes the least amount of inconvenience for passengers? Could there be scenarios wherein the regulators or the regulator and the ministry requests other airlines to pitch in so that the inconvenience to the passengers is the least? Because at the end of the day, if the customer is not being serviced, it creates a challenge for both the airlines as well as the customer, right?
Should there be
over time it
a
can create some more
contingency
issues.
fund? Should there be a contingency fund of some sorts? And Mr. Bakshi, just thought came to my mind when you said let's use this opportunity and make sure something like this doesn't happen in the future. What about the many, many times it's happened in the past? Nobody is surprised that an Indian airline is finding it difficult. It's not breaking news. And it has happened in the past. I'm not talking about a specific airline. We've seen this with Kingfisher. We've seen this with Jet. We've seen airlines, passengers in the lurch. So at what point are we going to understand that we need to have a plan when this happens? I just want to get Captain Amit Singh in on this. There seems to be no plan. It's all left to the winds. When will the passengers get refunds? Are there credit notes worth the paper they're written on or the email that they've come on? Other airlines, can they come in and demand whatever prices they want? There are no answers to these things.
So many airlines have folded up, but still we don't have a SOP. Yes. That if something like this happens, yes, something should kick in automatically, or like you said, a contingency fund. After Kingfisher closed down, there was a regulation issued by DGCA to preempt that in case they feel or they see any indication of an airline in financial trouble, they would increase the audits, etc., etc. But nothing was done this time, and so many other airlines have closed down without any SOP kicking in. We have seen in case of evacuations, India has done umpteen evacuations since independence, but still we do not have an SOP for an evacuation. It is basically on a voluntary basis, or some masiha comes in and bails us out. So we don't kind of believe in structuring the whole thing. That is the big problem. We saw during the COVID about the refunds. So DGCA had a regulation for, I think, 15 years that in case your flight gets cancelled, you would be offered refund in cash. That is primary, or if you want a credit note, that was secondary. But by default, airlines were giving only credit note, not offering the cash, which was there in the regulation, but nobody was enforcing it. So regulation is there. That is the problem in India. Application of first make a structured program and then apply it and make sure it applies uniformly. Airlines are supposed to make profits, but reasonable profits. So who is going to ensure they're making reasonable profits? So the monitoring has to be done by the ministry and the DGCA together, that if they are not deploying sufficient aircraft, then on the other hand, they're making more than reasonable profits. So something has to be done. So that part is not being done. And communication is always an issue. Anything which comes up new, the people or the passengers who are the major stakeholders, they're not aware. Now we will have things like e-gates and those immigration clearances, but nobody knows about all these things, data privacy, etc. So everything is blurred. And we don't get an indication that the ministry has a full grasp on the situation, neither on the fuel nor on aircrafts, import, export, leasing. So these things are all left to the individual airlines or the leasing agency to decide whatever. So there is not a structured roadmap on which
For
we
one,
can
it's time for
build
one.
the foundation of aviation.
Let's hope there's some work happening on this, even as Go First navigates its own course and attempts to get back in the air. We'll have to wait and see what's happening there, because so many indications coming in from the NCLT. The lessors now are saying, at least give us our planes back. The more they're lying there, the less their value is. So it's getting into a complex situation. And we'll have to wait and watch what happens there. But meanwhile, for the passengers, all that doesn't matter. They want to know that when they buy an air ticket for an Indian airline, that they are guaranteed that their flight will take place, and if something happens, there is a plan in place. We need that plan in place now. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the show this evening. We'll take a very short break, but stay tuned. A lot more coming up on the other side.